Welcome to the Magical Salon, where two regular people, Amanda and James, explore mystical ideas and big questions. From books to pop culture, if it's a doorway to something deeper, we're probably into it. We're not experts, and maybe you aren't either, but that's kind of the point.
Welcome back to the Magical Salon. I'm your resident adrenaline junkie, James, joined by
Why did you steal mine?
Too Slow.
Okay, then I'm the anonymous observer.
In this episode, we're going to explore the idea of transcending human limitation. We're going to explore extreme sports as a modern form of transcendence, where athletes push beyond fear, pain, and survival instinct in search of something larger than themselves. Is this pure adrenaline seeking or a deeper drive to break human limitation and touch something beyond the ordinary? We'll dive into obsession, risk, and pursuit of the impossible.
An argument could be made that endurance athletes and extreme sports people they're artists of the body. They're pushing the human body to its extremes in the same way that art does.
So, from my perspective, if we just highlight what specific extreme sports we're talking about, immediately I think of like free solo rock climbing, which for those who don't know is when you are literally climbing without a rope. So if you fall, that's it, you're done. You have nothing to support you. There's no net at the bottom. You're not tethered to anything. So that Alex Honnold guy is really famous because he was the one that climbed El Capitan in Yosemite, I think. But then recently we watched a docu-series on HBO called The Doc Wizard. And it follows Dean Potter, which obviously I loved that show because it's just incredibly insane what he does. And it made me wonder at certain points, does he have a death wish? Is he just suicidal and depressed? Like, what is he doing this for? Because it's so dangerous, and all of his friends and family are even at points like, yeah, he was not in a good headspace. But then at the same time, they still went along on the trip with him and just recorded him. So, like, he could have fallen to his death. What drives somebody to do some of these things?
I think you hit the nail on the head in your intro when you were saying a lot of it has to do with obsession, but to an unhealthy point. Is it not just verging on illness? And then it raises the question, why didn't anyone stop them? In the show, I think because it's rock climbing and not explicitly a problem in some, nobody really was like, I just feel like people didn't try and intervene as much as they should have.
The show is really amazing because you truly get to see him progress as a thrill seeker almost. The guy Dean Potter is who the show follows, who I didn't know anything about this guy. He's allegedly some degree of fame and notoriety in the extreme sports community, which is not a very big population, as we'll learn, because a lot of them die. Spoiler alert. So you have a pretty short career in this realm. But he literally started as rock climbing with ropes. Then he graduated to free solo climbing. Then he started tight walking or whatever they call it, where you're literally just on a single rope strapped between two mountaintops, basically 3,000 feet above the ground. Then he started getting to base jumping, skydiving, wingsuiting. He's literally just getting, once he masters one area, he's okay, time to, what's next? He's constantly almost the opposite of what we talk about on the show, where you're supposed to find contentment. He's always chasing the next big thrill almost.
You're psychoanalyzing the show, which you always accuse me of. But couldn't an argument be made that his access point to transcendence was these adrenaline tasks? And thus, because I feel like people enjoy it because it clears your mind and it forces you to be really uber present because your life is on the line. So you're hyper aware, but in a very bodily way, minimal thought. You're basically transcending. And I think we talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, but I think that there are different access points to transcendence. It's like the spokes on the wheel idea, just as there are many access points to God, to transcendence. I think that's how. So I don't know. Could that not also be why he was doing it?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he pretty much said as much. And the reason I'm referencing this show so much is because it's not just him, and it talks about a lot of extreme sports. And it interviews a bunch of different people that are in the scene. It profiles events like, oh, people died when they were protesting the ban of this thing. And he stirred up controversy because at one point, this is the Dean Potter guy, as a rock climber, he climbed a sacred mountain, which was literally called Delicate Arch in Utah. And that was what kind of got him in the public zeitgeist, if you could call it that at the time, because he was sponsored by Patagonia and he illegally climbed this thing. People said he damaged this incredibly ancient rock formation. So, from a magical perspective, I thought that was a really interesting part because he basically acknowledged, I climbed this thing. You're not supposed to climb it. It's like an unwritten rule or unspoken rule in the rock climbing community. That's off limits. Like in the circles episode, when you mentioned one mountain, people can't summit. It was the Odyssey, but I was thinking of the book, The Circles. So he knew he shouldn't summit this thing, but he did it anyways. And he was, yeah, I mean, I was just doing it for myself. It's like the Dark Wizard is what the show's called, implying he's doing things by tapping into a dark part of the human psyche almost to do these things. Because he's literally facing death every single thing he does, basically.
So you think it's a good or a bad thing that he climbed this sacred rock?
I'm saying it's neutral because it's just a rock. But what I think is interesting about it,
Is it though? Because is it not significant in some way? Who is it sacred to? You said it's a sacred rock.
I might be it was literally, it's, you know, when you see a Utah license plate with that like very iconic, it kind of looks like the St. Louis Arch, but it's out of rock.
But so in Australia, you know that giant rock thing? That's both like when you see it, you immediately think Australia, right? But it's also a spiritually significant rock for the Aboriginal people. So is it like that, or is it just a rock that you're not supposed to climb?
I think it's literally a geographic marvel. Like the fact that this thing even
A
exists.
science marvel.
No, it's more than that. It's like the fact that this thing is billions of years old and is somehow standing, and it's like you can see it. It's super narrow at one point. It doesn't look like it should even be able to support itself. Why are we talking about rocks? The point of it, I thought that was interesting, is he acknowledged it was a bad thing, but he kind of did it anyways. He knew there was going to be backlash. He got fired. He got dropped as a sponsor. This caused a lot of repercussions. And one thing that comes up with this guy, specifically the Dean Potter guy, is he frequently does this because, again, he climbed this, then he went and did a base jump wingsuit thing with his dog strapped to his back. That also made headlines and was on all of these different news channels because they were like, is this animal abuse? This guy literally strapped his dog to his back and jumped off a mountain. It's insane if you think about it. But again, he's knowingly leaning into the things you're not really supposed to do. He almost is acknowledging he's drawing on, I don't want to say dark power. It's called the Dark Wizard. So some people thought it was a darker force within us that he's tapping into to do some of these things.
That's interesting. And you did a good job of describing the parallel. But I don't think that really came through for me in the show. He did nothing magical from my perspective, and he didn't really. What?
Nothing magical. I personally could not even stand on top of one of these mountains with a rope to a tree, so I could not fall off. I would not even be able to do that. And this guy is jumping off mountains, climbing with literally holding by one arm with thousands of feet below him. That's magical, isn't it? You don't think so?
I guess. It depends on how you look at it.
I think that's why it's cool because they're in the pursuit of an experience that is almost unreplicatable. Like impossible to mimic. You can't get the sensation of jumping off a mountain or rock climbing with no rope unless you do that specific thing. And the amount of people that have done that is there's not many. And like I said earlier, they die a lot. These are very dangerous things that they're doing, but they know it, right? And I think at one point in the show, this guy was an extreme sports photographer. And he was talking about how the most beautiful, it was something about beauty in life comes from the line between death and life, like mortality. Like the closest you can get to that line, like at some point, and there are some amazing shots and photos of him doing these amazing things. You've probably seen a photo where it's him outlined hanging on a mountain overlooking a vista. Companies were using that in ads, and it's like that's him doing it. I don't know. There's something about testing like Into the Void when we talked about the call of the void. He's like, you have to be transcended the entire time. You cannot waver at all your attention.
I mean, yeah, I guess it is magical. I mean, I guess transcending is magical, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, to get to the headspace to do these things, you've got to be tapped into something. That's beyond thought. You're acting on pure instinct and like,
I think it's because you feel most alive. Because you were talking about the void. When you feel most alive, you have to be present. I get why you would become addicted to it in a way, because it's a specific feeling that you can't get doing anything else. And I also understand why you would feel the need to push it one step further. And in that way, it also is druggish. So I don't know that I would really call that. I mean, that's not really suicidal. It's not really a death wish either. It's kind of something else.
I think it's good that we're talking about this specific point though, because truthfully, like when we first started watching the show, I think I turned to you and was like, this guy has a death wish. Is he not just suicidal? But as you watch it more, you realize they do have a deeper meaning. Like the way they're talking about rock climbing or wingsuiting, they're like, it's more than that. This is like when I'm in the air, there's no phone calls, there's no work, there's no diapers that you have to change. Like there's nothing. It's literally you alone floating through the air. That's it. There's nothing else going through your mind. So it is like transcending. And also they're literally separated, not like they're just in this weird limbo in between. They're not on the ground. They're not really in the air. They're just like dangling or they're falling. Like they're in this liminal space between life and death the entire time they're doing the activity. It's like you jump off the rock, that's the end of life potentially. Do you touch down? I don't know. And that's where you're in the void when they're doing whatever the sport is.
It's interesting because this idea of touching God, if that's one way of thinking about transcending, are we not kind of like the rats in the cage that we as humans conduct all these experiments on? This idea of like the famous example where they would put, what was it like? They were giving cocaine or something to the rats and they were like becoming like addicted to it because they were testing like addiction. It was something to that effect. Does that ring a bell to you?
Maybe. Let's say there's cocaine rats. What's the time though?
I guess the tie-in is that for people, once you know how to get a certain feeling, and that's your access point to transcending, you're gonna go back for more, like the rat and the cocaine. Even think of like motorcyclists. Motorcycling, there is a death-defying element because it is quite dangerous and you can go really fast. But I was also thinking about the ultra running piece because there's actually, from an anecdotal perspective, there seems to be some overlap between people that get into ultra running and people who were previously had an addiction problem, whether it's alcohol or drugs, because I just feel like the ultra running, like you have to train all the time and you have to, it's a very controlled way to use a similar energy source, I think. Maybe that's bad to say, but you can hallucinate and stuff when you do ultra running, which I think is interesting. Your body can be so taxed that you'll hallucinate. So I'm curious what that means from a magical perspective, if anything.
So ultra running, I definitely think I like the idea of what we're talking about now because we're in a different sport entirely, right? Ultra running, David Goggins, these people are also, you're not, so for reference, the marathon, the race that people run today,
Who's David Goggins?
he's some like Navy SEAL guy that is like, you can't hurt me. I was a fat loser and then I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, so I got off the couch. Don't be a fucking loser. Get off the couch, you fat ass. That's the kind of person that he is.
Yeah, very military. But he ran on his broken legs. He completed a marathon. I guess he got fractures or what was the deal? His legs had fractures and he continued to run.
He needed to qualify for some race, and the guy was like, there's an ultra marathon this weekend. It's on a literal track. You have to run 500 laps or something crazy. And it was just an absurd race. You literally just run in laps, and it was for 24 hours. And if he didn't do that, then he wouldn't be able to do this other ultra marathon. It was like a preliminary basically. And out of sheer willpower, he dragged his body. I don't know. But the point is, marathons are a feat, I would say. Up until the last 20 to 30 years, if somebody did a marathon, that was pretty impressive. The original marathon, the story behind it is also just cool. They were like, Rome was being invaded by somebody. And so the guy ran from, or is it Greek? Where's Athens?
The guy ran. What guy?
It's Greece because of the Olympics, duh.
Oh,
So-
Hercules.
There was literally a guy that ran from a city, Athens, to Marathon. They were being invaded. So Marathon was the city. He ran 26 miles to warn them. It's like Paul Revere, the British are coming. Except this guy did it in like 500 BC. And then he died. That's the lore. He did this run and then instantly dropped dead. That's the legend.
He did this lore. I do not believe that, but I like that. That's creative.
It's a great story though, because so think about it like this. What I'm saying is that was a once in a lifetime feat. This guy was known. They still know who this guy is because he did this race, right? He ran such a far distance that it was so memorable and amazing. Now people are like, oh, running 26 miles. Dude, I run 100 miles. I run 250 miles. And for a topical twist, there was just a race in Arizona. It was 250 miles. It was an ultra running race, and somebody died during the race, a participant, and it made the news. But again, we have a bar where it's like, maybe marathon is like, that's pretty good human potential. That's pretty good. These people are transcending that. They're becoming superhuman almost. 250 miles? That's insane. And they're doing it in one run. They don't have a break. It's just a race.
Yeah, so I don't think running a marathon is even good for you, for your body, because the human body is not really, that's not really in, it sounds bad to say, in our nature. I just feel like it's hard for your body.
Yeah. It's none of these things are good for you. Rock climbing without a parachute, that's not good for your body. If you make one mistake, you're done.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, to your point, everybody runs a marathon now, so it's not really a feat. It's just kind of, oh yeah, I don't know. I think it's been underplayed. It should be a bigger deal than it really is, in part because it's not a thing you can just do. And if you do, something bad could happen to you. You could kill over and die. And I like the way that you framed these acts as feats because it's kind of like a spectacle, like an Evil Knievel. Watch me do this thing. So the audience piece is also important because Alex Honnold climbed that building in Malaysia semi-recently and everybody was watching. There was a live Netflix thing and it was live broadcast and then there was a live audience and I was frightened and terrified because I was like, if he falls off, a lot of people are going to see this and we're all going to be traumatized.
I think that's part of again, like the dark energy thing. It is dangerous and you know there's a risk they could die, and that's partly why you like watching it in a weird way. Like for me personally, it's like I'm getting sweaty palms, goosebumps sometimes. I'm like, oh my goodness, like my heart's racing. I'm sitting on my ass. To your point earlier though about marathons not being important anymore, I completely disagree, though, because and what I want to talk on that about, though, I think there's a disconnect between what in the news and the real world. I can look at a newspaper headline and be like, oh, a guy ran 250 miles. Oh, my sister only ran a marathon. That's not impressive. But again, remember the original marathon story. This guy ran 26 miles and died. I'm not in good shape.
That's not even, you can't even cite that as fact.
I think that's a good example, though, because it's like that's like a human pushed himself to the limits and he died. If I got off my couch tomorrow and tried to run a marathon, I would not do it. I tried doing that once in college. I delusionally read David Goggins' book and I was like, I'm going to go to the forest preserve on the street. So I was like, I'm going to go there and it's 2.5 mile loop. I'll run it like 10 times or something crazy. And I was like, I'll run a marathon tomorrow. I think I made like 1.5 loops and then just quit and went home for reference. So I ran 3 miles. I'm just saying, it's impressive.
I guess I'm more, getting at the fact that a lot of us live our lives very much so online. At least our minds are filled with a lot of, not fake stuff, but just stuff that you've never seen in your real life. I've never seen it in my life with my own eyes, and yet I know about all these other people in their lives and stuff, which is weird to think about.
Something interesting about running specifically, because you and I have a history of running. You've run a half marathon. I signed up in college and ran a 10K with my sister and I vomited.
No, you forgot about when you were a kid. You were on the track star or something. No, cross country.
Yeah, I was pretty good naturally, but that was shorter distance, 2 to 3 miles. It's not a marathon. I did get third place in a regional, though.
I kind of do want to run a marathon, though.
So the point I'm getting at, though, for an impressive thing, I think, is you have to literally do the race yourself. Nobody else can run it for you. And that's where I think these people doing these extreme sports get the thrill. They're not being the observer anymore. You're the resident observer, or whatever you said today. They're becoming a participant. You're now in the podcast. You're not listening to the podcast. They're not on their couch watching a guy climb it. He's doing it. They're not talking about running 250 miles. They did it. The mental state to actually get your body, and it's just you. Like most people, and that's what David Goggins is always like. Again, it's probably not healthy, but your body can do way more. Your mind is just weak. You don't have good willpower. You quit very easily. The second something gets hard, you stop. And that's the thing with these extreme athletes. They have to drag their body. It's pure mental willpower. Their bodies do not want to do this. And they are pushing past that limit mentally to override it.
Even during the half marathon, your body doesn't want to keep going, but you can mentally make it keep going. Because your body's you're not just gonna casually go out for a 13-mile run. If you think about it, like, that's pretty absurd. Yeah, you were just talking about, and I wrote also down here, because you said something about nobody can do it for you. Just this idea of locking in, right? You can prepare all you want, but at some point you have to actually do it. And that's especially relevant in skydiving or base jumping. You can think about it all you want, you're in the plane or you're standing at the top of the mountain, but at some point you have to actually jump. And that's what kind of marks the doer and the non-doer.
I'm just really thinking about, for some reason, the void was in my head today, but I think they are stepping into it, right? Or it's like the abyss almost figuratively, like that ledge. It's like they step off that ledge into the unknown, which is what the abyss, the void is mentally. You have to mentally do something that you've not done before. It's uncharted territory mentally. So you don't know if you can do it. But the only way you can find out is if you do try. And I think the Dean guy talked about that a couple times, right? They're like, you have a death wish. And he's, no, I'm trying to push myself to see what I'm capable of. And every time I think I've hit my limit, I surpass it. So you need somebody to be pointing the way or trying it. Maybe people wouldn't have been trying some of this stuff now. And now it's even more insane. And even in the documentary, it talks about aging a little because he's out of his prime. but he's still trying to compete for public attention. He's still trying to push the boundaries as he's getting a little bit older. The people are better, they're faster, the technology's better.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they actually have less fear or if they're just somehow better at managing it. But in my mind, just that whole series of events, trying to push yourself, not really knowing if you are going to make it, but also being confident in your abilities, that is magic in and of itself. So, I mean, that just seems like a pretty good way to live. And you clearly have a dream, you have a passion. So you're fulfilled by that in many ways. But I was also just thinking earlier, yeah, the idea of the dark wizard was just making me think of how these people like Alex Honnold, Dean Potter, they are the modern Houdinis because it's, oh, if they pull it off, it'll be incredible, but it could also go horribly wrong. But it's the type of thing that you can't look away from. So I get why. And then with our internet culture, which is just really obsessed with gratuity and tragedy, all of these things combined, it's interesting for sure.
And I think they talk about in it, and one of the things you mentioned, are they afraid? I think the Dean guy, which again, I really did like this show, obviously, but I don't really know anything about the guy. I just watched this documentary on him. You can watch it on HBO, but
I'm sorry, where can they find that?
HBO, home box office, but maybe it's some dumb name now because of the corporate.
That's what it stands for? Home box office?
I thought that's what it stands for. So, anyways, Dean, I think, acknowledges, again, pushing the limits, but then also he is afraid, which is why I think he is more interesting to me, or was, than the Alex Honnold guy, because Alex Honnold he's so robotic and emotionless. He is a computer almost. He's not excited. He climbs this thing and he's just, okay, yeah. But then Dean, he does something not even as cool, but still he could die. And he's screaming and shaking after, holy crap, dude, that was close, whatever. But he has the human element. Watching him, he doesn't seem that different than you or I. Whereas the Alex Honnold guy is detached.
I think people have different ways of expressing things, but I do think they have different energy. Alex has a more intense energy, whereas Dean, yeah, I mean, him and his crew were doing psychedelics while they were rock climbing, but their camps were hanging on the side of a wall. So it was a tent attached to a stone cliff, plus their sleeping bag inside there, and they were blasted on shrooms.
The problem with the show is you have to, I can't even, you can't even paint a mental picture of it because it's so insane when you realize the scale. There's one part where the guy is climbing and it slowly starts to zoom out. It looks like he's maybe 100 feet off the ground. And then it just starts zooming out further and you're like, oh my God, he's really high up there. You wouldn't be able to see him if you didn't have super good camera. That's how and they're just like, yeah, they're sleeping up there for days. But to your point of them, they are living a good life in some respect, because even if this guy died at 42, I think, 43, that's not that old. It's not that young. It's not so tragic. He lived a good life, is what I'm saying. He flew all over the world. He did the craziest stuff.
I like how we're moralizing his death.
Yeah, but no.
So what's your thoughts on Steve Irwin dying when he got stabbed by the stingray? Because I feel like that's a similar circumstance. He died doing what he loves.
Getting stabbed by a stingray?
He was doing his crocodile stuff, and then he just happened to get stabbed and died. Didn't he die for a stingray or no?
He could have been on vacation. That's just a tragic
Shit, you
accident.
think? No, look that up. Fact check that, baby.
What?
What if he didn't die doing what he loved? I always thought that. I'm not even kidding.
He was filming an underwater documentary called Ocean's Deadliest. Well,
They were deadly.
That's a synchronicity, right? You can't even make that up.
The point is, if you die doing what you love, there's definitely worse deaths.
I'm saying the people doing these extreme sports always die what they love, though. That's why it's a different thing. It's cool in a way. Most people, I could just get killed in a car accident or hit by a drunk driver walking. This guy, if he dies, look, that's on him, but he's also flying 200 miles an hour down the side of a mountain. That's pretty cool. It's a lot cooler than, yeah, they died of a choking on a pen while working, or they died in a road rage accident coming home from their shitty job. It's, yeah, they're living life to the fullest. They went to Switzerland. He's traveled the entire world. He's jumping in caves and stuff.
It's like playing Russian roulette. If you continue to do these extreme things, eventually you are going to die. And I think they do know that, and they don't really, or they've just come to peace with that because, again, there's worse ways to go.
I think that is what it is. Because, again, at the end of the day, if you take a stoic approach, you're gonna die anyways. It doesn't matter if it's tomorrow or in 100 years or in 1,000 years. You're gonna die. So they are like, okay, I might as well literally live. They're doing, whether I think it's the best life or not is kind of irrelevant. You know, the people living this lifestyle, that's their best life, right? They're truly just doing exactly what they want to be doing, which there is something really cool and inspirational about it, right? They just go for their dream, and then it just, their life conforms around it, so that they're living out of a van, but they've got a small community of good pals, and they live in the most pretty places ever, and they go do really cool stuff. Like, that's their kind of thing. I have a different thought. Again, magical related, relating to the Dark Wizard show, though. He talks a lot about, he had like dreams as a kid of falling to his death, he said. And there's like moments throughout the show where they allude to these ravens. Like he fell once and like a raven died next to him, but he probably should have died. And he was like, wow, I cheated death. And they play this tie-in that he and ravens get along or whatever. And then he dies. And he's like, yeah, I realized at a certain point, I'm not falling to my death. I'm falling because I'm learning how to fly. Because like he was one of the people to like push wingsuiting. He like set a world record at one point for a 3-minute flight, which is crazy. At one point, they just jumped off the building and then threw their parachute instantly. But then he started like looking at flying squirrels and was meeting with scientists at like MIT and stuff to design aerodynamic suits so he could fly. That was now his fix. Instead of jumping, he was trying to fly to go further or for longer.
It's interesting when he was saying, I'm not falling to my death, because I was thinking, you've heard that some people say the light at the end of the tunnel is you being born into the next life. Have you heard that?
So when you see the figurative light, that's you like being birthed in the next life instantly.
Yeah.
That, it could be aeons later, or it literally happens instantly.
I think it happens. I think the implication is it happens instantly.
That makes it more interesting than in light of how he actually dies, which they show at the very end. At the end, they have the video of him, and he like, Dean crashes into a rock. You can't really see anything, which is good actually. But in the background, there is a raven flying between this notch, this area that he was trying to fly through that he didn't. And the bird is right there. So then in your instance, he's literally like going into the tunnel and then reincarnating as the bird flying behind himself, watching his human body in that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's instant.
Theoretically, but technically you would start out as a baby, right? So it would be being birthed as something, even so you'd be a baby raven.
Do they come out of eggs?
I think so. I'm not an expert.
I just thought it was a cool tie-in for the show, though, because they kind of did tie in a bit of a spirituality thing at the end, where the wife or whatever was like his girlfriend. She was like, yeah, he's my raven, and she's at the cliff where it happened, and there's a giant raven sitting next to her. She was like, I knew he would come back or something.
What if that was somebody else?
It was a good thought.
It was a different climber.
I think the cool thing about the idea of all of these sports, though, ultra running specifically, is willpower. It's the will to power. It's giving you something to wake up and do and work for every day in every facet of your life at all times. It's like a filter that you're always considering. Oh, should I eat this? I can't eat that cheeseburger because that's not going to help me run. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. That's why it's close to the obsession people. It's close to addiction, and it's that level of obsession, and it integrates into your life so much.
So here's the thing though, it's willpower. That's just really, it's their life purpose. Whatever the goal is, that's what they're driving towards, but you can physically see it, which is why it's an interesting thought as a versus somebody that builds businesses or a career politician. They're not building a tangible thing. You can't point to the rock and say they, in some cases, you could say they built a wall or didn't. I guess what I'm saying is the people, you need a soul purpose almost, and this is their soul purpose. That's their motivating force. They have intrinsic locus of control. It's all internal, but it's motivating them and driving them towards whatever that sensation is, like these extreme. We did have a wiki wizzy. It's a short one, don't worry. Weekly wisdom, that is. And,
The Weekly Whiz, what is it?
it's gotta be from the show The Dark Wizard. And this one's from Dean Potter. But he says, quote, "Somehow when my life's on the line, it pushes me and brings my senses to a heightened state of calmness and clarity." It's kind of like gnosis, where despite utter chaos being happening on the outside, in terms of you're like flying by at millions of miles per second, to the experiencer in this case, the runner, the flyer, the climber, time slows down actually. Things are calm. I think that's an interesting gnosis, basically, is getting to that point.
Yeah, he's transcending.
So yeah, comment, subscribe. We're available on all the major platforms.